Going live with a very special guest. Most of our guests so far have been from Oxford, and this one is from my alma mater, Cambridge. Till last night, this student is studying law, so same as what I studied. And here she is. Hi, Amy, and thank you for joining us. I was just saying that we actually studied the same subjects. You're in first year, of course. I graduated a couple of years before you will. But sort of, I guess everybody knows a little bit about me. But could you, tell us what stage you're at, what college you are at, and also maybe a little bit about sort of your journey into Cambridge, like where you were before?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Amy. I'm a first year lawyer at Churchill College. So I'm obviously just about to start my final first year term next week. I'm from North Yorkshire, specifically Beckwithshire, which is a fairly small town, so I won't. It's near Harrogate, if any of you know where that is. I went to a state school. I applied to Oxbridge Cambridge, because I did fairly well in my GCSEs and one of my teachers recommended it. And yeah, now here I am.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. And well, one thing you said is you're a lawyer. So some people might actually not understand that when you studied law at Cambridge, or actually in the UK at university, it's not like a professional degree, is it?
No, sorry. It's an academic degree. So
Yeah.
I end up explaining this to my friends a lot when they make the jokes of, oh, so you can bail me out of jail then. And I'm like, absolutely, I can't. I cannot practice law. Yeah, we just look at like the academic side of it and kind of look what the law should be and how it's applied in complex situations quite a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Although I guess on that point, the law degree at Cambridge is slightly different to the one at Oxford in that at Oxford it's actually called something different. It's called jurisprudence, and that's because it's less what they would call black letter. So the Cambridge course is really focused on like statutes, what the law is, whereas Oxford focus a little bit more on the should. But one question I would like to ask is what maybe your favorite cases, and I'll start with mine. I mean, maybe I'll start with mine, but I won't necessarily say the favorite. I've got a few that are pretty interesting, but maybe the most famous is sort of Donahue and Stevenson, where there's like this woman who walks into she goes out for, is it lunch again, or basically she goes out for some sort of meal.
Out for coffee, I think it is.
Out for coffee, yeah,
well,
out for a coffee. And like she opens this bottle of is it ginger beer again?
It's ginger beer, yeah.
So she opens ginger beer, and like a bit of a sort of decomposed snail falls out, and that is pretty much sort of one of the cornerstone cases of sort of the law taught. And so that's one of the first cases that you'll actually learn. There are obviously some a lot. I would say maybe outre cases and ones that are a little bit maybe we shouldn't talk about on this this Instagram live. You can probably go look up some of the weirdest law cases that have happened afterwards. You will cover a couple of really weird ones, especially in criminal law. You can imagine all of the weird things that people do to each other. But no, I guess without putting you on the spot too much, what's a particularly interesting one that you've come across?
I say a particularly interesting one is Joe, the conjoined twins case. So it doesn't have a nice name because they're twins babies.
Yeah.
And it's about, can we legally separate two conjoined twins? If we don't separate them, they're both going to die in a few months. But if we separate them, one of them will definitely die now. And is that murder? Is that legal? I really like that case. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, these are sort of really difficult questions that you have to try and answer. And as a judge, you sort of have to decide. So I guess, on the one hand, it's really inspiring for us in the legal sort of profession / academia to think about these problems. But on the other hand, it's a big responsibility to try and make up your mind what should happen in this particular case, because there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer. But the law has to be very clear on what's going to happen, what shouldn't happen, what's good, and what's bad. One really cool thing studying law at Cambridge is also the library. So I know that when you're there, it's sort of like this big glass building designed by Lord Foster, and I think that a lot of students who aren't necessarily lawyers also try and steal our desk spots over there.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a turf war. But you're currently at Churchill, right? So is there a law library? Because I was at Pembroke and we had like just a little bit on the top. There was a law library where we had a lot of books that were specifically related to law, and that was sort of reserved for us.
Yeah, we do have a law library. It's more of a law cupboard
Hey.
because obviously, well, Churchill is a 70% STEM college, so 70% of students there are science, technology, engineering, maths, computer, that kind of area. So the kind of maths and science textbooks do far outnumber the law ones, but we do have our own nice little room. It is quite small, but it's got a lot of textbooks in. And actually, I think there's only been once so far this year that I haven't been able to find the book I wanted in the Churchill one, which is quite good.
Yeah, no, I've got to say I was a little bit lazy when I was at university. I sort of tried to download the online ones whenever I could, rather than going actually into the library physically. Yeah, I mean, one thing that we got asked last time was whether sort of what it actually looks like at the college. I know it's dark now, but are you able to sort of show what it looks like outside, sort of outside the college? Because Churchill is quite a distinct sort of college itself, isn't it? It's like a lot of the colleges are very old.
Yes,
whereas
ugly is the word a lot of people use. But
sorry,
ugly is generally what people say. But yeah, it is dark out, and I look onto the field, so you can't actually see. Sorry, I was trying to get my window open. Much of the college, but if I kind of, it is just complete. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's complete darkness, so you can maybe kind of see a bit of field, but yeah, sorry about that. Not the best view.
No, no worries. I mean, you showed us probably one of the most essential parts of Cambridge and the colleges, which is the classic lawns that are actually out there. And so, yeah, we weren't really allowed to walk on the lawns ourselves. And I know that at Trinity, you're not allowed to. At Churchill, do you have the privilege of walking on the grass?
Yeah, we can walk on the grass.
Oh, that's nice. I remember actually, I think it was in my first year, I made the mistake of walking on the grass, and one of the porters said that, you know, if I walk on the grass, they're going to shoot me. So they get quite protective of it.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite protective of our grass. We're allowed on it, but the gardeners are very, you know, it's kept very clean. It's very nice. They mow it like every morning.
Yeah.
So they're very into keeping our field looking lovely, but we are allowed on it. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's something that I was just surprised at. You know, like why can't you walk on the grass, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went to see one of my friends at another college, like in first term, and she was like, "Oh, you can't walk on that." And I was like, "Why? Why not? It's grass."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, super. And sort of talking about that and other weird things. Like, what's one of the other weird things about Cambridge, in your opinion? Like in the past, I've talked about how I think sort of the pennying at Hall is quite weird. One other thing that another person who was on the other night talked about was that at Oxford they've got something called trashing after exams, which we do a little bit, but I think they do it in a bit more style when they're fully dressed up in their gowns.
I think one of the things might be there's slang for everything. Like, just every single thing that could possibly happen, someone's got a slang word for it. It's so weird. You hear people saying things, you're like, that's not a word, but it is.
I mean, you wouldn't expect that, would you? For Cambridge folk, they've got the stereotype of being very conservative, not necessarily using too much slang. What are a couple of your favourite examples of slang?
I like stash, which is just Cambridge Uni merch, basically, because every time I say it, my mum's like, "Do you mean drugs?" And I'm just, of course not.
All of these Cambridge students just having a stash.
Yeah. So I like stash because it makes me laugh and my mum gets appalled. What else is? I think just things like calling the kitchens gyps and things.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? I like it, but who came up with it?
I have no idea either. I think one other thing that we called our cafeteria at Pembroke was trough, which really makes it sound like the food isn't particularly good. You know, it's as if you're eating out of like an animal's trough, but it's just the name that they had for the hall. So like, weird things like that. And also bops. I think at Churchill, you must have your own bops as well, right?
We do have bops, yeah, quite a lot of them, because we're a little bit out, so we're not in the centre as much, so a lot of bops.
Yeah, I mean, explain a little bit just maybe like where it is in terms of geographically, because Pembroke's pretty central, and
Yeah.
Cambridge is not too big either. But there are sort of a certain number of colleges that are a little bit further out from the centre.
Yeah. So Churchill's one of the hill colleges, which off the top of my head, and I'll definitely forget one, is Churchill, Fitzwilliam, Murray Edwards. There's
Yeah,
St Edmunds, which is a grad college, that kind of area. So we're basically
you've
on the
got
hill.
Robinson. Did you mention Robinson?
Robinson, yeah, I always forget Robinson. We're kind of on the hill as you kind of come out of Cambridge a little bit, but I think it's a bit of a myth that we're like actually far out. It takes 10 minutes for me to walk from my college to the city centre. So
Yeah.
terms,
Are you a particularly fast walker?
not massively. I mean,
Yeah.
probably maybe 15 minutes max if you were a bit slower. But
Yeah, I mean, I think I just got really lazy when I was at Cambridge myself, actually. Like, I would think, oh, going to the supermarket,
yeah,
oh, that's going to take me like 2 minutes of walking. It's just too much.
you really do, because most things are so central. You're like, oh god, it's such a walk, and then you realise, like, I don't know, back home it took me 40 minutes to walk to school every day, and I'm like, oh god, why was I ever doing that?
Yeah, exactly. No, and like, if you have a bike, it's even shorter. It's like a
Yeah,
couple of minutes. I remember that once I was walking back from Churchill one day, and it was sort of a little bit dark at night, and I was carrying one of the essays that I'd just done back. I can't remember exactly why, but I think it had been marked, and for some reason I just lost like half the papers while I was walking under my arm, and I tried to find some of them, but wasn't actually able to. Sort of tried retracing my steps, but at the end of the day, I thought,
yeah.
this is it. So that's I guess one of the stories I have during one of my journeys to and from Churchill, and I had a couple of friends there as well. But as you say, it's sort of most of my friends were probably studying STEM subjects while I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm the only person in my household of 9 people who does a non-STEM subject. So
Yeah, now how does it work with the households at Churchill? Because at Pembroke we had things like basically staircases where you'd almost live on a staircase. It's like each floor has about four rooms, at least in the old, and then it would go up. So you'd have sort of a very narrow bit of staircase that everybody would live on.
yeah, I mean, we're very, very similar. I think in the staircase that I'm currently living in, there's 6 rooms on the first floor and 4 rooms on the top floor, and we've got a kitchen, and I think randomly we've got 4 showers and 2 toilets, so that's
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you have en suites? Actually, I have to ask this question.
I don't, because I'm in the lowest band of rooms in terms of pricing, but quite a lot of the rooms do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends on what room you pick. You can pick to have the slightly more expensive rooms have, double beds, en suites. So like next year I'm going in a slightly nicer room, so I will have a double bed and en suite. But this year I'm just in a nice single one with a shared bathroom.
Do you have the ballot and also the scholars ballot at Churchill? Or
So
you
we
got
don't have scholars ballot. We just have so you decide which friends you want to live with, and then you sign up as like a group housing ballot as to which like specific staircase you want to live in. So they give you like a list of all the staircases and what rooms are in each staircase. And then so you put like your first and second choice, and then they try and allocate everyone their first choice, and then what they can't, if there's a dead tie for one staircase, they flip a coin. But yeah, we don't have the scholars program at all, no.
Yeah, because at Pembroke we had the scholars ballot as well, and then I know at Trinity they've got like 2 tiers of ballots. They've got like the normal scholars ballot and then the super scholars ballot, basically.
Yeah, I have a friend at Christ who tried to explain to me their system, and it just went over my head.
Yeah, I realised we also mentioned ballot, which is a bit of a weird term as well. I don't know if you'd agree with this explanation, but I'd say it's sort of it's basically like a fancy word for a draw, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, one question we just had in the comments is, have you ever struggled with your roommate? And at least at Pembroke, and I think this is probably mostly the same at other colleges, we don't really have roommates. We don't necessarily have people who live in the same room as us, which is very different to a lot of other unis. Is that the same as at Churchill?
Yeah, there's no shared rooms, but in terms of like flatmates, I mean, there's 9 of us living in one household. It's been a year in COVID lockdown. We've been in isolation. We have had a few arguments. Nothing major, just like whose plate is in the sink, why is there, that kind of stuff. why is their hair all over the shower? That, you know, fun arguments. We haven't had any serious troubles, which is quite lucky because I suppose we just got randomly allocated to this household by the freshers. But yeah, we've had a few minor arguments.
Yeah, yeah. Who's sort of drinking the milk as well?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I guess that's a great question though, because it's sort of it gives you a little bit of insight into what life's actually like. I think we often talk on these lives about what it's actually like at the uni, and not so much necessarily about what day-to-day life is like. But, what does it look like for you? You've moved back to Cambridge now. Obviously, that's why you're at the college. But what's a day looking like? Because presumably you haven't yet gone into full revision mode. You probably have like a couple of weeks of lectures left, like 3 or 4.
Yeah, so I've still got a bit more content for every topic, so I'm not in full lecture mode. Today, I woke up, I watched a couple of lectures, because this year, because of COVID, all my lectures are just pre-recorded, and I just watch them whenever, which is both good and bad, because you can decide, but also you can put them off forever. Yeah, so it's not great, but it's also good, because I can then watch them whenever I want. Yeah, so I woke up, I watched a couple of lectures, and then, it was really, really sunny today. So I went on a really long walk with one of my friends.
Did you sitting on the lawn doing a bit of punting? Is punting allowed? It might be banned now or not.
Punting's back.
It's cool.
Yeah, I think you have to go in households, but it is back. And I went rowing this afternoon with college, which is very nice. It's very fun.
Nice. And then you capped off the day with a little bit of work then, or not?
A little bit of work, yeah. Made tea, chatted with my friends, doing this.
Cool. Yeah, I guess that's pretty normal, right? It's not like 24/7 studying.
No, and I think that's actually one of the things that has shocked me a bit, because coming in I was kind of like, oh my god, it is going to be 24/7 studying, but I was like, I'll do it, but it is going to be, and it is difficult. There's a lot of work, but it's completely manageable. Like, I like sport quite a lot, and I'm playing quite a lot, and it's fine, and I chat with my friends, go out. It's all manageable. It's good.
Do you have a favorite lecturer yet? I know we had a couple that we would a couple that we liked, a couple we really didn't like, and a couple that were just sort of a little bit dry. So during the lectures, I think there were a couple of jokes made about them. But
I like. Do you know Stevie Martin?
Stevie Martin.
On constitutional, admin, international human rights law, all those kind of. I think she might be fairly new.
She may not have been there when I was there, actually. Yeah, she might be a new.
I really like her. I think she's a fantastic lecturer. I quite like. You'll know Trevor Allen.
Oh, of course. Well, he was one of the fellows at our college who supervised Chief of Consti. Yeah, he's a great guy.
So his lectures are. He talks very slowly, but I do like him. I think he's a very good lecturer.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, what do you think makes sort of the best lecturers? I remember, especially for Roman law, and that's an interesting point, actually, because at Cambridge, and I believe at Oxford as well, you have to do something called Roman law, which is literally just doing like the law as the Romans had it, and going back spanning over a couple of 100 years, but basically law that is over 2,000 years old. So that's sort of a bit of a fun fact about Cambridge law as well. But there were a couple of interesting lecturers, and I mean, if you come across like those weird problem sets, like you may have come across the problem set that we had, which was like a llama spits in somebody's face. Sort of that, like that was one. What happens? Who's liable? Right?
Yeah, I do always think, who comes up with these? Sometimes just some of the legal problems they manage to come up with are just incredible. But yeah. I think good lecturers are ones who I like it when they have slides and pictures and things like that, because I like looking at things and visually seeing them. And I like it when they talk quite slowly and clearly.
Yeah, so hence why you like Trevor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I guess it's nice when they have slides. But my favorite lecturers are actually the ones who tell stories. So the ones who will be able to help you sort of understand it, because they're sewing the thread. And you end up covering, I think, much less material, So, somebody who has loads of slides, and some lecturers will have like tons of really dense lecture notes, and you'll cover like so much. And with one of those lecturers who tells a story, you might spend, the whole lecture just talking about one tiny little story, but it really just sticks in your mind. And so I love those lectures.
I do like it when they've got like practical experience in doing something in law. I like it when they say like, oh yeah, this is what the law says, but in practice either this doesn't get applied much, or this does get applied a lot, or judges kind of ignore this academic point, or they really like this one. I really like that when it gets related to like the real life experiences much more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is it anything like what they make it out to be in Suits? For anybody who's thinking about that, I just have to ask that question.
No, not really. I mean, I watched. Obviously, I have to. I'm a law student. I've watched Suits.
Yeah.
But so far, I've not put on a suit and threatened the lawyer behind the case so that they'll kind of drop it a bit. So that's a shame. But hopefully, fingers crossed, in a few years, I will be able to.
Yeah, exactly. One question again from Mariam here is, how can you manage waking up early in college? I bet it's difficult. And then the second one is, have you ever slept during a lecture? That would be funny, but embarrassing at the same time.
Well, they slept during the lecture first. Like I said, all my lectures this year have been pre-recorded. They're uploaded on a uni website, and I just click play. I have fallen asleep during one, but no one knows because I'm just in my room. But yeah, I'm sure people must fall asleep with them in regular years. Maybe next year. I'll let you know in a year's time whether I have.
Yeah, we'll have to do another live in a year.
Yeah, catch up. Waking up early, yeah, it's difficult, but I mean, everyone finds waking up early difficult. I used to have to wake up early when I was home to get to school on time. It's the same thing. Yeah. Just getting in the rhythm of actually getting up when your alarm goes off.
One thing that I do actually think is weird is that when you're going to secondary school, you end up waking up at like 6:30 in the morning to get to school, or even a little bit earlier. Like sometimes you wake up at like 5:30 even. And when you get to university, your lectures will start at like 9, and you're getting up at Cambridge. You can afford to wake up even at like 8:40 sometimes. And then you're thinking like, oh, this is so early. And then you compare yourself to how you were working, or how early you were waking up when you were at secondary school, and you're like, hang on a sec, I'm waking up like 3 hours later.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, I used to wake up to go to school at 6:30, and now I consider it a very good day if I'm up and dressed by 9. I get very impressed with myself if I've done that.
Exactly. I mean, I hope that answers your question, Mariam. It sort of answers it, but at the same time, when you're at university, it seems like you can get away with getting up a lot later. I think everybody just tends to go to bed a bit later, and also maybe not so much this year, but you end up going out a bit later as well. So, yeah. I guess one of our final questions that I would like to ask as well is the personal statement. So, this is obviously one of the cornerstones of your application to any university in the UK. You have to write the personal statement. And do you have any personal tips for writing a really good personal statement? Like, maybe some tips related to law, like what you put on there, and maybe second of all, just like general tips about the personal statement.
I mean, my general tips would just be, find something in your subject you are genuinely passionate about and genuinely super interested in, and just read a book on it, read an article on it, watch a podcast, listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube video, anything like that, and just write about it. Because in year 9 drama, I did a play about a famous legal case called, it's about Derek and Bentley. It's the Let Him Have It case. It's turned into a movie and a play. It's all about whether or not they should have hung him. And I did a play on it.
The last hanging in the UK, right? Ever.
Yeah, that's that one. Yeah. And I did a play on it in year 9, and I don't know, I just got really interested into it. I was so confused about why it happened, what was actually going on. So then I wrote about that in my personal statement, and then since, obviously, I was a bit older then, I read a little article on it, and I talked about that. I think with law, one of the things is just, I don't know, sometimes you just got to be passionate about it. And I mean, work experience definitely isn't necessary because it's so difficult to get. I didn't get any.
Yeah, yeah.
I went and sat in the back of my local magistrates court, which you can do for free, although maybe not this year because of COVID.
Yeah.
But I sat there and I just spent a couple of days watching like speeding cases and things like that, and I wrote about that. Yeah, I don't know. I
All
think
the most fascinating cases, speeding ones.
Not the best. I did
But
get
that's the
quite
cool.
because
Sorry.
I recognised where it was happening because it was my local court. They'd be like, "Oh, you're speeding down King's Road," and I'd be like, "I know where that is. That's where my school is." So that was exciting. But apart from that, it was quite dry.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that a lot of people don't actually realize is that most of the courts in the UK, well, I'll speak for England and Wales, are open. So you could literally just walk in and sit at the back, unless it's like something that's really confidential. You can just sit at the back and watch them. You can walk in.
So I live fairly near Leeds, and I went into Leeds to go to the Crown Court, which is like obviously a bit higher up cases.
Yeah.
And so all courts have like ushers who are kind of in charge of scheduling everything and make sure all the judges and barristers are in the right place. And I went up to one of those and I was like, "Hi, I'm interested in doing law, and I was wondering if it'd be possible for me to sit in the back of the case." And he was really nice to me, and he found the most interesting case that was going on that day. And I just sat in the public gallery and watched it. It was a drug dealing case. It was really interesting.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah,
when it's not COVID and if you do have a court near you, I'd really recommend doing that. They are genuinely helpful.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Just make sure to read up on the etiquette before, like stuff like weird stuff like bowing. Like when you open the door, you have to bow a little bit, and then sort of bow when you go out as well.
Stand up when the judge comes in. They do tell you, but yeah.
Yeah. And sort of just related to the interview, and final question. I promise I'll let you go in a moment. What do you have any horror stories about interview? Maybe not yourself, but about a friend. It's always interesting to hear because they are really far and few between. But it's just interesting to hear what everybody's horror story is.
Yeah, I mean, my own wasn't particularly horrific. I did the normal thing. If I came out of it and I was like, "That's the worst thing I've ever done. I'm definitely not getting in," that kind of thing. But one of my friends, in her personal statement, she was applying to do history, and she heavily criticised this book she'd read about, it was a certain take on the Tudors. I don't know, I don't do history. It was a certain academic opinion, and she'd read it and she'd, disagreed with it and whatever, and she'd written criticism of it in her personal statement, and she walked into her interview and the guy who'd written the book was interviewing her.
No way.
Yeah, and she said it was just awful because he was just like, "So let's talk through some of the criticisms you've made of my book." And she just sat there like, "Okay." But she did have to get in, so.
She got in?
Yep, she got in.
Wow. Yeah, that I mean,
bad.
Exactly. I mean, she must have been feeling just like the worst, though.
Oh yeah, she came out and I think just burst into tears. But
yeah.
I
mean, that might be a tip actually. If you don't want to, she obviously got in, but if you don't want to put yourself through such a hard time, maybe look up who's going to be interviewing you, or have a look at who's at the college that you're applying for, so that you don't necessarily criticize what they've written.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we've come just up to 30 minutes. So thank you so much for your time today, Amy. It's been, it's been great to talk to somebody who also went to Cambridge and also studied law, actually. I would just sort of wrap up with, if anybody watching enjoyed this, or anybody watching the recording really enjoyed sort of hearing what Amy was saying, you are currently a mentor with UniReach, or you will be mentoring with UniReach in a bit?
I am. Yeah.
Cool. So if anybody wants to sort of ask Amy questions afterwards, or if you are interested in being connected with a mentor who is not necessarily studying law, but maybe one of the STEM backgrounds from one of our previous Instagram lives, then definitely just do head over to our bio. There's a link to a waiting list where you can sign up. And we partnered with UniReach to offer this sort of mentoring to students who do want to apply to Oxbridge. So we'll be able to match you with somebody who can help. So just sort of to wrap up, thank you very much for your time today, Amy. I think it's been really really enlightening for everybody. We had a couple of really great questions in the comments, and this will be available to people to watch afterwards. So thank you very much. And yeah, for your exams that are coming up, good luck in them. I hope it all goes well.
Thank you.
See you, Amy. See you, everyone. Bye.